that to me was a test that I set and passed for myself while I was growing Grindstone. Is like, if I can't freaking wake up on time, how in the world could I expect myself to build $1 million business?
Yeah.
And so I made that a priority. I'm like, okay, well, if this is what successful people do, I'm going to model that behavior and I'm going to do these things. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the pod. Today, we're going to be talking about the secrets of peak performers.
Yeah, we are.
So we're talking about morning routines. We're talking about high performance habits, different things that you need to do in your life to improve yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a man or a woman, things that just make you better. AJ, we had a bunch of episodes we recorded before this for a different show, and we were driving around earlier just like thinking of topics, and I was like, this is the one thing, if you tied me up, put a blindfold on me and threw me in a closet, I could still jam on this for like hours.
You could jam on it while you're being waterboarded.
Yeah, maybe not then.
I have a good morning routine.
But the definitely something that I'm very passionate about and is a cornerstone in my life is routines, habits, and just I put a lot of intentionality into preparing myself for the day and preparing myself for the week. So what I want to do is first and foremost break down, there's a lot of people that are like in the camp of like morning routines don't matter, do whatever you want. And there's people that are like morning routines are everything. And there's people that are like, my morning routine is 6 hours long.
My day's ruined if I don't do it.
Yeah, your day's ruined if you don't. So where do you lie on like that spectrum?
And with the morning routine specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone through seasons, just like with different things that have happened in life. So I don't know. I try not to make my life too rigid. You've probably noticed that just like being friends with me for a while now. I feel like for me personally, and like we said, this is different for every person. Like I know Landon is an absolute creature of habit, right?
Yes.
So like I would say 99% of the time, you have a very specific way you go throughout your life. For me, the way I look at it is like the soonest I can get to work from the moment I wake up, like I'm good. Is really like the way I look at it. Because like sometimes I do wake up late. I mean, so as an example, like the first thing that comes to mind is we're expecting a baby. So for most women, their first trimester is very, very rough.
Right.
And my wife got like really sick one night where we didn't leave the ER until 5 a.m. Life situations like that, especially when you're running your own business from home. I mean, I don't know about you, but I wanted to sleep after that.
Yeah.
So I went to bed at like 6 a.m. and I woke up at like noon. But then I think for me, the thing I focus on the most is from when I wake up to what I do next is what matters. Right. So for me, like if I wake up at noon, but I get to work at 12:30 and I actually I just zone in and I go, that's, I think, just given how crazy life is right now, that's kind of the season of life that I'm in currently. I'm sure when our kid's here, it'll be different. Did that answer your question in any way? Yeah.
Yeah. You're more or less like, you're the type that's kind of like adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
I think that that's good from an adaptation standpoint and like necessary. Example, it's negative. The temperatures got down to like negative 17.
Yeah.
So even a normal house in Nebraska that's like really prepared for 0-degree weather where your pipes would never freeze and not an issue. Our pipes actually froze.
Yeah.
Praise God. We didn't have any, pipe bursts or anything like that, but we did have like a chunk of ice that was stopping us from getting our water. And so, I woke up literally yesterday morning and had to figure out, okay, where do we need to put a space heater? Where do we need to warm up our pipes so that this can all get free? And we resolved the issue. I think that there's, we definitely both possess like an adapt or die type of mentality for sure. Things are going to happen no matter what, like it's life, right? The only constant is change itself. So yes, there's going to be those things. I'm talking about like the normal days though. The days where like everything is absolutely
just normal,
plannable, predictable. Where do you fall inside of that though?
So the standards I set for myself, I like to try and get up relatively early. I'm not a 6 a.m. kind of guy. It's very tough for me to socialize at 6 a.m. And any time before that. But I mean, as far as like my morning routine goes, typically what I'll do is I'll wake up. I like a cup of coffee right when I wake up, even though I know it's not what you're supposed to do, because you're not supposed to drink coffee until about an hour after you wake up.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if people really pay attention to that, but I'll drink a cup of coffee. One of the habits I've been working into my morning routine is getting into the Word, because I feel like I was really bad about that before. And like what I've noticed is that when I'm more intentional about doing that, it's just easier for me to focus. It's like going to church on a Sunday. Like, especially if you've had a really bad week, we've talked about this, but when you go to church on a Sunday, it's like this reset.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, what I've learned, especially doing it more recently, is like every morning I get into the Word, I feel like I'm kind of resetting myself into a good mood.
It's true.
Which is like a really good way to start the work day.
It's absolutely true. It's called renewing your mind.
Yeah.
With the Word.
Yeah. So that's part of it. And then also for me, like, family is huge to me. And by family specifically, I mean my wife. And so if she's not working, like, I'm pretty adamant on like spending at least 15 to 30 to 40 minutes with her where we can just like kind of talk about what we got going on for the day.
Yeah.
We did that this morning and it was awesome. And then hop on our sales huddle meeting and then move from there. And that sales huddle really like that we have in the morning is kind of like a nice little get-go, because it's like a 15-minute huddle where we can talk through our goals. And then I'm in this mindset of like, okay, work. Like I'm in the mindset of work. Yeah. So it's just easier for me to kind of move into that phase. Yeah. So that's kind of like what a normal day looks like for me. It's really not super rigid. Like it's pretty simple. I'm not doing yoga in the morning. I'm not journaling in the morning. It's pretty much wake up, coffee, Word, wife, work. And that's
all the W's.
Yeah. All the dubs.
Love it.
All the dubs. What about you? What's your morning typically look like?
So I want to go back to when I was getting started, because my morning routine was a little bit different then, but not too terribly different.
You're talking about when you were starting Grindstone?
When I was first starting Grindstone.
Okay.
So, because I think that's where like a lot of folks are when they find this stuff, is they're either like in the journey of building the production company, or maybe they've been at it for a while, maybe they're brand new.
Yeah.
So, and I think that it's really interesting. Hormozi talks a lot about this, where he says that people will become successful and then they go do a thing and they'll talk about how they're doing a thing, and then people will infer that that thing is what made the person successful.
Yeah.
And that's often not true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the idea of work-life balance when you're trying to build $1 billion company, it doesn't exist. Like it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Being present and being where your feet are is a thing.
Yeah.
But to say that you would have any modicum of work-life balance in that, it's just not a reality. Going back to the morning routine, back in when I was first getting started, so I was quitting when I was leaving my W-2 job. This is when I still had a full-time income. I would wake up at 4:30 a.m. just because I had heard from a bunch of success gurus. No real reason. Just I had heard that online that a bunch of people wake up at 4:30. I was like, cool, I'm in the 4:30 club. Like
just do it.
I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And I was modeling, right? Like I was modeling behaviors of successful people. And so I was like, cool, 4:30 club. And so what that really caused me to do too is change the decisions I was making at night. And so that means not going out to the bars on a weeknight. That means not eating a bunch of really crappy food late at night so you stay up super late. That means really just like being intentional about shutting down so that you don't feel like death the next morning. That's not fun. Yeah. So that's a big thing right there, is just the time that you wake up will change a lot about your life. I genuinely believe that. So I read this book called The Miracle Morning, and it talked about like basically how to change your life. And I was actually still working my full-time job in sales and marketing, and I was reading this book, and actually they brought us this book at work to read, which is really cool. So shout out Trados, and specifically I think it was Lindsay Ickes who recommended this. And so Adam brought it to work and said, hey, this book's awesome, you should read it. I devoured it. And then there's a framework inside of the Miracle Morning called Savers. And so this is, again, I'm going to preface this flies in the face of everything that like what Hormozi talks about of like wake up, get to work as soon as humanly possible. So like there are two camps of people. This is definitely, I was in the opposite camp, and I'm not saying that that's right, because if I would have got up and worked, I might have been way more financially successful. So I'm just telling you what I did. And so the first things first is silence. So decrease stress and anxiety while increasing happiness and focus. So like some sort of meditative practice. for me, it was actual like meditation. I would just like sit there in a quiet room and get quiet the mind. Right. Now it's prayer. Affirmations. So improve self-esteem and self-confidence. So I would actually like have a list of affirmations that I have still to this day written on my phone, and I would say them out loud until I believe them.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that hate on this stuff, but I just like, whatever, like and it sounds silly when you're saying it out loud, but this is what I did.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get into like things that I still do today and things that I don't do, because I think that that's really relevant.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions to post for you when you're finished with this,
cool.
But I have something I'm really curious about.
Love it. And all these things don't have to take that long. Like I think affirmations, I did like 10, 15 minutes of silence. I did like 3 to 5 minutes of affirmations, maybe, if not less. So that's 15 minutes. I think then visualization. So rehearse your mind rehearse in your mind performing at your best. And there's a lot of research on this, on visualization specifically. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. It talks about theater of the mind, which is a phenomenal read. And it talks about it talks about the benefits of rehearsing your victory before your day starts. And so telling your mind, and this is something I'm really glad I'm even looking back up, because I need to renew my mind to this a little bit too. But visualizing how you want your day to look, how you want your week to look, how you want your month, your year, your decade to look. Yeah. And so what people will do is they'll start off at a certain time frame and then work back or work forward, however. And there's lots of different practices, but I like this a lot. Then exercise. That was critical too. And I did hit that every single day. That's still a critical part of my life. Reading. So read 10 pages of a book and then scribe. So just to journal, right? Yeah. So that's savers, and it's silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. And so I'll let you ask your question.
Absolutely. So we've talked over your routine. We've talked over what I'm currently doing. From what I'm getting from this conversation, there's kind of, like you said, there's two camps. There's the people on the far right where there's 1.5 million things that you need to do just to get your mind right to be able to actually be in a position to work. That's the one camp. Then you've got, if you've noticed, we talk a lot on this podcast. We just have a lot of conversations. One, because the content's good. Two, because he's somebody who like unapologetically has been very successful, which is Alex, right?
Yeah.
On the left side, you have somebody who it's like literally, I think there was one podcast he preached where he was like, you want to get to a point to where you can wake up and walk to your desk and work. And I'm like, that's great, but like also kind of depressing in my opinion. So I want to pose the question to you. We're talking routines here, and I want to get kind of into the meat of it, but
He by the way, he just posted a video. It's so funny. He literally just posted a video that says F your morning routine, which is funny. And like, there's so many parts of that I actually agree with. Yeah. So we'll get into that, but go ahead.
Totally. But like why do you think, not even just morning routines, not nighttime routines, but routines in general, whether that's routines in how you market your business, routines in how you sell, routines in how you handle client relationships, morning and night routines, like why do you think, and why is it important to have routines to be successful, not just financially, but in all areas of life, with your faith, with your family, and with your finances?
Well, it's a big question. Why I think that routines are important, first and foremost, is that it resets your mind and makes you conscious about the decision you're making, or it makes you conscious about the direction you're choosing. So for instance, if you just kind of like go to bed whenever you pass out after playing video games for 6 hours, or, the bag of Cheetos rolls off your bed and that's when you fall asleep. You know what I mean? Like if that's your reality and you're just like being swung around by the tail by life and essentially just like accepting what life gives you, then, that is chaos in its finest. Now what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that would be eating earlier in the day so that when you go to bed, you don't have a huge, like full stomach. So you're actually like digesting the food properly and you're not on your back trying to digest. The other opposite of that would be, you're intentionally planning when you're going to sleep and when you're going to wake up, which means your circadian rhythm is regulated to a specific time pattern, which means you're going to fall asleep, at the right time. You're going to, not the right time. You're going to fall asleep at a predictable time, and you're going to wake up at a predictable time.
Totally.
Like I'm getting to a point right now where that part of me is so dialed in that 6 a.m. I'm waking up at like 5:59 I will hear like one vibrate on my phone before it goes to a ring, and I'm literally up. Like that's
awesome.
how dialed it is.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm coming out of a sleep cycle.
Yeah.
And so it resets all of those things, and it makes you more intentional for where you want to go. And so I think I was just honing in on 2 of them, but there's a lot.
Well, it's wild. And to be vulnerable for a second, like I feel like that is, out of all the areas in my life, my night routine is in absolute shambles compared to like my morning and just my work routine. Cause like,
let's talk about it.
well, if I need, so I guess for me, the type of person I am is like, if I need to be up at a specific time,
You'll do it.
I can get up, even if it's on 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the happiest person in the world, but I can make it work.
Right.
But I mean, just obviously, like if I go to bed at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. when I'm supposed to, I'm sure that my day would be amazing and I would be able to get so much done throughout the day. But yeah, so my nighttime routine isn't exactly where I want it to be, but this just goes back to like, nobody's perfect. No one's 100%. No one's on all the time. And you go through seasons, right?
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that is being able to self-evaluate and self-reflect on being like, you know what? I'm not getting up on time. I'm not getting up when I need, especially if you have kids. Like I'm not getting up on time. I'm not being able to be there, like present for my kids. I'm not being able to wake up early enough to do my sales calls. So like for me, vulnerably, like I'm in a season right now of self-reflection of, you know, I love playing video games, but also I should probably cut myself off maybe a little bit earlier than what I'm cutting myself off at right now. Or like switching up and being like in the morning, you know, I'm going to be having a kid here soon. I'm probably going to need to switch some things up so I can get up earlier to take care of my, it's going to be a girl. It has to be a girl, but to take care of my daughter. Right. Yeah. So I'm going through moments of self-reflection and self-evaluation of things that I know that I can work on as far as my night and day or my night and morning schedule. But as far as my work schedule and like my schedule, my routine with like the work that I do, for me, the way I look at it is I have 3 to 4 things in my mind that if I can get 3 to 4 things done in our business, like that's a really, really good day. Like 3 to 4 really big things done. Like short forms, long forms, closing or like doing any sales calls, anything in that realm. As far as the morning routine for me, I'm like, or the work routine, I feel like I have that pretty dialed in. So you go through seasons. I mean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, the whole point of a routine is that you are going through seasons, but that's the whole point, is to remain static in certain areas of your life. And so I don't know if you ever saw this, but The Rock actually, like Dwayne Johnson, had a speech that he gave to the Lakers. Did you ever watch that video?
I don't think I have.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Watch it. Just watch it on your way home. It's so good.
Cool.
So he talks about like how lifting weights grounds him. And he says like, my back is against the wall. And that's like the farthest I can fall to rock bottom is my standards. And so like, it does not matter if he got 30 minutes of sleep. It doesn't matter. And this is consistent of all high performers, by the way, not just him. But he talks about like, it doesn't matter if he literally got in on a flight and has to like be on set the next morning. He's just like, no, this is just how we operate. And so he's choosing in his mind to make like, so for him, he's talking about fitness. Like fitness is the ground zero. He's like, I don't go below this point. I hit my standards every single time. And so that's where, to challenge you slightly on that, is if people, because there's a ditch on both sides. There's like the side of where you're like, oh, well, things happen, seasons, you know. It's like, we're talking about routines. Like We're talking about you committing to yourself, I'm going to hit this standard. And this isn't just something, this isn't just a thing, you know, like this is what we do in the morning. And so when you adopt that standard, like truly ask yourself, and where that language comes from is Tony Robbins, you don't get what you want, you get your standards. And so for me right now, that's like 2024 is a year of just like really improving my health. And so my standard is changing. Like instead of being like, oh yeah, well, you know, we'll put business first, but we'll see if we can get to the gym later today. That's what last year was. This year it's different.
Yeah.
This year it's like, no, we're going to wake up and intentionally make time for everything that I need to do at the gym so that no matter what happens, I have the time and it's going to be put in so that that part is taken care of.
That's powerful. I hope that anyone listening to this, because like that was a mindset shift for me just there. And honestly, the thing I'm excited about, the thing I enjoy about this conversation is the fact that it's also an opportunity for those of you guys who don't know, for me to break my own limiting beliefs. Because Landon is, I mean, how far ahead of you are you in business than I am? Like 4 years, 5 years?
I mean, I started my entrepreneurial journey like October of 2016.
You also have so much wisdom though. Like I feel like just with your experiences, and that's one of the things I appreciate about our friendship is I'm able to kind of look to you as somebody who like kind of tears down the veil of like, let me challenge you really quick.
Yeah. Cause it's all coming from a place of love. Thank you, by the way. I am, my standard is really high and I'm nowhere close. Like I miss it constantly. It's not that I miss it. It's that I'm constantly moving that goalpost out. I'm like, I know what, like I can live with myself of like, I did good today. I think that's really important, by the way. Like another point of a morning routine, whether that's to wake up and freaking grind and get work done, or whether it's to like actually make time to be mindful. At the end of the day, you should be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not proud of yourself by the end of it, then you're freaking doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And so if it's optimizing to get more work done in the morning, which is like what Hormozy talks about, like just, get up and freaking start working.
Yeah.
If you're optimizing for things outside of just work though, which most people do, then ask yourself, what am I optimizing for? Why does this matter to me? And what do I need to do to make sure that I can make this my standard and not just a nice to have? Because when something goes from like, oh yeah, if I get time, to a freaking standard, that's when your life changes.
When you say optimizing your morning routine, do you feel or do you believe that people should be optimizing? Because like we said, Alex optimizes his, from what we've seen, entirely for like work.
It's input versus output. It's optimized for like, it's optimized for output.
So how do people
of work? It's work output.
But you also said people optimize for things outside of work. So like, what are you optimizing for specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, for the rest of my life, it will be faith, family, finance in that order. Yeah. And that's a set of priorities, right? And resources get managed by priority. So money and time are both resources, and they get managed by priority. So like at the very first thing at the beginning of the day, I want to spend that time with God so that I can first and foremost renew my mind so that I'm a better person to my wife. Yeah. So that I have strategies and wisdom of how to pursue all the things that come along, all the challenges that come along with running a business, and literally get ideas for that business. If I was to reverse that order, which is what I did for the first 3 years, 4 years of my life in business, that wouldn't work today. So I think that there are seasons, but at one point though, I was waking up and just immediately getting to work. And like, that was amazing. Yeah. And you know, I had heard that a long time ago, you know, the best morning routine is the one that literally gets you to operate at a high level so you can do your job very good and very quickly. Like my friend who I genuinely believe will be building $1 billion company, that's exactly my two friends that I think have like $1 billion potential. That's exactly how they operate. They wake up and they literally go to work. And so, but that's what they're optimizing for in their life right now. And that is it. And like, God bless them. Like, that's super cool. That's what you feel like you want, or that's what you want to do. Right now in my life, I'm optimizing for faith, family, finance in that order. And it's freaking awesome. And I'm super happy and I'm in alignment. Like, so you can't take that away. There's going to be days though, where like, oh, hey, you know, health has to take a front row seat today. And health is inside of that basically. But absolutely. There's going to be days where, you know, you have to adapt, but at the end of the day, what's your standard? What is your hard wiring that happens day in and day out? And this is one of the things that comes from a routine and forming really good habits is you begin to trust yourself more and you begin to become more confident. So if you think about it, if you made a promise to yourself, let's say that you made a promise to yourself, you're like, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow and then you missed it and you didn't keep that promise and you woke up at 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Now repeat that behavior, repeat the promise and repeat the result 7, 8, 10, 15 days in a row.
Yeah.
How are you going to feel?
That's where I feel like that's where imposter syndrome sometimes can come from too.
But like, how would you feel?
I would feel terrible.
You'd feel terrible. Why do you feel? Why would you feel terrible?
Because I'm not keeping like the promise or the commitment I'm saying.
You're not keeping your word.
Yeah.
And if you're a good person who is a man of integrity, and you make promises to yourself that you can't keep, are you going to have any confidence in your life ever?
No.
Like, how could you be confident in the fact that you're going to deliver on a huge promise in work? Or how can you be promised that you're going to deliver a really great life for you and your rest of your family if you can't even freaking wake up on time? So for some people like that want to change their life through habits and routines, like start with the most basic, simple routine in the world, which the book Atomic Habits talks a lot about. Start with the most basic routine, which is why I harp on you guys about being on time for our 9 o'clock meeting. Is like, if you can't do the small things right, you're never going to be successful at the big things ever, because the small things are easy and the big things are hard, like for that reason alone. So that to me was a test that I set and passed for myself while I was growing Grindstone. Is like, if I can't freaking wake up on time, how in the world could I expect myself to build $1 million business?
Yeah.
And so I made that a priority. I'm like, okay, well, if this is what successful people do, I'm going to model that behavior and I'm going to do these things. And so, to be truthful though, like there's times in my life where I probably needed to hear that Hormozy message sooner and be like, hey, stop wasting so much freaking time on your 2-hour morning routine and get up and work. Like I needed that.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that he made that video, because there's so many people that get lost in the sauce on like this super complex morning routine.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be that complicated, which is what I want to talk about, like now what I do instead of like what I used to do. Because there's a huge difference.
Totally.
And I don't necessarily think that like that made me who I am today. I really don't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we are currently working in 2024. We're looking to grow like our business, right? Yeah. And so tell me now, what does the earth is not on fire, meteors are not raining from the sky.
You mean it's not -17 and our pipes didn't freeze?
It's not -17, our pipes are freezing, and there's a unicorn outside that just poked a hole in your tire.
Right.
What
a normal day.
What does a normal day like for you typically look like?
Yeah, so the routines look quite a bit different now. First things first, it's wake up, and I'll go like minute by minute. Yeah. It's wake up, 6 a.m. I immediately do the hardest thing that I don't want to do first. Yeah. And for me, that's a cold shower, because, when it's not -17, it's a cold plunge outside. But right now it's a cold shower because like logistically I would have to wake up and freaking chop the ice with a hammer to even do that. So it just seems like a waste of energy. I'd rather just like get the effect, wake up and leave. So right now that's waking up, taking a cold shower for 2 to 3 minutes. Just enough to wake up instantly, because I hate the feeling of being groggy, which is why I seek caffeine constantly, and something I'm getting better at. And why I think a lot of people seek caffeine. Yeah. Right. So I don't like that feeling of being groggy. So immediately I want to get rid of that feeling. And so wake up, get that dopamine rush of doing something and making myself proud of myself. Like if you can't look yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm proud of you, dude, ask yourself why. That's a big key too. So I wake up and I do something that I don't want to do. And that's taking a cold shower. The second thing I do immediately is, I walk downstairs, and for some reason, if we cook dinner later that evening and the kitchen isn't clean, I immediately clean the kitchen as and my wife is acts of service the way she receives love. So I love like surprising her with like a super clean kitchen if we cook late. The second thing, if the kitchen's like clean or whatever. Yeah. And by the way, clean house, clean mind. So that's a real thing. So if that's done, I'll roll downstairs and immediately like either turn on worship, I'll get in the word, or I'll watch a pastor, just like a YouTube message from a pastor that I respect on YouTube. Because
it's your inputs, right?
It's all inputs. I'm managing inputs. I'm managing what I'm saying to myself. I'm managing like I'm setting myself up for success in the day. And I know that like when I write that, and like I have my notebook. Yeah, this is great. So every day either in the morning. Yeah. In the morning or in the evening before, I will actually write 5 things that I need to do the very next day. Got this from Andy Frisella. Brilliant. It's called the Power List. And so I write down the top 5 things I need to do that day. And they don't necessarily just have to be a to-do list, but rather habits, behaviors that you want to, and they should be tangible so you can check them off, but they can be consistent. So like if you're trying to build the new habit of eating 200 grams of protein a day, then write it down, check it off, write it down, check it off. And as you begin to make promises and keep them, your life will improve. Yeah. So with that, come down here, spend time in the Word, because that grounds me. That's my ground zero. Yeah. Then after that point, I'm going to journal a little bit, and I'm going to plan out my day. I'm going to plan out my top 5 things that I need to get done for me. And if I already have them done, great. And then immediately after that, I'm going to go to the gym. So go to the gym for 60 minutes right now, rehabbing my shoulder. So I love spending like 30 minutes in the sauna before I start working out. So it's been 30 minutes of the sauna. Again, something I don't want to do. Super cold in the morning, super hot. Like I'm freaking drenched in sweat by the time I start my workout. I don't want to do it, but that's why I do it, is because I know it's something that like I'm pushing the limits of my body, and it's pushing the limits of what I want to do. So I'm staying uncomfortable intentionally. And then I come home. When I'm not fasting, I'm fasting right now, but when I'm not fasting, come home, slam a protein shake, and I'm literally like on between from then until 5 o'clock at night, and it's work time. And so basically 9 to 5, it's work. Anything before that point is focusing on the faith and essentially the health side. And then basically from 5 p.m. on is all about family, which is with Megan.
Why 9 to 5? You said from 9 to 5 you're normally on working. But you're like, so I want to kind of like poke into the stigma a little bit. You're an entrepreneur, you run a couple businesses. Yeah. But why do you try to keep yourself within a 9 to 5 window?
Because I know someday I'm going to want to spend time with my kids, and it's going to require that I figure out a way to create a healthy margin in my life. It's really easy to just let one thing in your life become your entire identity and forsake everything around you so you can pursue that one thing. Absolutely. I did that for the first 4 years of my life, right? So where like business came first and every single thing became second. I realize now that that's not a sustainable way of living if I want to be a present father, if I want to be there for my wife, right? So
it's the if.
Yeah, it's eventually. Yeah. And I create that boundary intentionally so that I can fit, because like the desires that I have, like to run $1 million business in the next year, like Jeff Bezos is running, what is it, $1 trillion company now? Elon Musk running multiple $1 billion businesses. If I can't figure out how to make $1 million inside of a 9 to 5 window, then how in the world do you think I'm going to grow past that? Yeah. So to me, it's like my vision isn't that crazy, that ridiculous that it requires me to work outside of that. And it's actually more difficult to force it inside of that window and prioritize the time and be very present for the working hours so that when I'm off, I'm truly off and I'm with my wife. Because I don't really believe so much in work-life balance as I do believe in being present where your feet are. So like when I'm done working, I'm with my wife. Yeah. Or I'm hanging out, relaxing, playing video games with you and Bush. Yeah. Like I'm chilling. Yeah. But I'm not working and chilling. Yeah. I'm just doing one thing. And so I think that people mix things together all the time where they're not fully present at work or they're not fully present at home. And I just didn't want to become that. So I just decided I'm going to set the boundary now. And largely by Megan's prompting. She's like, when we have kids, like you're going to be, they'll go to sleep at 7:30, 8, whatever. Like, are you really going to be happy only seeing your kid for like 30 minutes a day? And I'm like, no. So
that's powerful.
I'm going to start preparing for that life now. Yeah. And, dude, Megan and I also like to kind of look at that on the other side. Like we also work till 6 happily because we can right now. And like, it's fine. Yeah. Not a big deal. But it's big because we're both doing that. Not Megan wishes I was home at a certain point and then I'm still staying back 2 hours later and I wish, if only I could get off, a certain amount of time sooner. It has nothing to do with that. We're working out of a place of passion and energy and excitement. So it's not like I have to grind because I can't get it done in less time. Does that make sense?
My big takeaway from what you just said was that essentially, like, so what you just talked about and then what we talked about a little bit earlier is that you're building and you're setting these boundaries. But the reason you can do that is because you're building and setting everything on top of this foundation, which is just a really solid morning routine that gives you like your me time, your time with your faith, your time with your fitness, so that way you can set up time for your work and your career, and then also your family. Yeah. But like it starts with those first couple of hours of the day.
Yeah.
And obviously the last few hours of your day too.
It's before the world wakes up.
Yeah.
The world wakes up at 9.
Yeah.
The world starts wanting things from you at 9. People start wanting things from you at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, I just try and get all that stuff done so that when it's time to be on for the day, I don't wish that I was somewhere else, or wish I could have carved time out for something. Yeah. And I'm not perfect, but that's something I'm making a priority in my life now. Yeah. And I'm setting my standard as somebody who wakes up at 6, goes to the gym by 7, and I'm crushing it for an hour and a half, and I'm like ready to roll at 9 o'clock.
And you don't feel rushed when you're doing any of that.
No, and I hate feeling rushed. Like if you ask Megan, like what's one of my biggest pet peeves, it's being late and being rushed. Yeah. Like I hate both of those things because a lot of the time, almost all the time, they are something that you're in control of.
Well, and you're being rushed because you're running late. And those
exactly.
two things suck.
It's a double whammy, right?
Yeah.
So I don't like either of those things. So I like to set up my life around them. And Megan knows this about me, where like I have to be constantly progressing in my life and proud of myself. And if I'm not a happy person to be around. And she knows that.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not on purpose and on mission for something, I'm not like fun to jam with, honestly. Like I'm not a good hang at that point. So she knows that about me. And so she helps me, one, set super tight boundaries around it, but also like she cares to help me optimize my life so that I can be a better husband. Yeah. And like, that's amazing.
Yeah. She's a good wife.
Yeah. She's awesome.
She's an awesome wife.
So yeah, that's kind of that's what's going on now.
Yeah.
It's first thing in the morning, cold.
Yeah.
It's getting in the Word, getting the fitness done, and then it's work from 9 to 5. Like it's so clockwork, dude.
I love
silly.
It. So I want to bring this kind of full circle here now. So everyone's sitting here, everyone watching on their drive on the pooper. They're watching this. Wow. Let's be real. There's one person. They know that they're sitting on their phone. They're like, watching this. I just got called out for sure. So we've talked about your morning routine. I was obviously a little bit vulnerable about, kind of where I'm at with routines as well. But I want to break this down tactically for people who do want to improve their life, but they get caught up in the fugazi of the social media world of the million things that you need to be doing to be successful. And there's two different camps to really look at this from, right? So let's break this down tactically. Let's say there's a guy named Bill, all right? Bill has a passion for video, and he wants to go and start his own video production company. Cool. He just quit his 9 to 5, but he came into it with terrible habits. So he took this huge leap, but his terrible habits. He doesn't wake up on time. He wakes up at like 10, 11 o'clock.
Had a work from home cush job.
Yeah, I had a work from home cush job. Now he has no boss that's not keeping him accountable in any way. The only person who keeps him accountable is himself. He wakes up at 11 o'clock. He has a terrible diet. He eats Cheetos and quesadillas and Doritos. He has no structure. He has no idea how to go from A to B and do it well. There's no there's no process at all, no morning routine. So for Bill, how do we get him? What are the first couple of steps? Let's just break it down into 3s because 3s are easier. What are the first 3 steps that Bill can take to get him on a path to develop better routines so that way he can become the person he wants to become, make the money he wants to make, be the husband he wants to be, and have a relationship, because I'm assuming that the people who are listening to this are Christians, are believers, has a relationship with the Lord that he wants to have.
Yeah. So he wants a lot and has essentially none of it.
He wants a lot and he has no foundation.
Got it.
No foundation.
Well, first things first, it's easy from like a believer perspective. And So we'll cover the believer side and then the non-believer side too. If you're a believer, first and foremost, it's important to understand that like God wants you to win. God wants you to be successful, and he doesn't want you to be poor or impoverished, and he doesn't want you to live a lackluster life with a lackluster family. He wants you to live a great life and honor him and be able to be generous on every occasion so you can bless those around you. And you can't do that if you're poor. Yeah. So first and foremost, if you're a believer and you're wanting to build a new life for yourself, you're wanting to improve your life, first and foremost, you have to understand that it's not a bad thing for you to have the desire of improving your life. God's not going to be mad at you if you want to provide better for your family. In fact, it's biblical. It says in Proverbs that a good man leaves an inheritance to your children's children. So you can't do that if you're broke. You can't leave an inheritance to your grandkids if you're broke. It's physically impossible. So that means you're going to have to start living out of a place, or you have to be in a place of abundance. Right. And if you're going to give out of a place of having more than enough, then your needs have to be taken care of. Right. That's the first thing. So understanding that like biblically, it's not bad for you to pursue more for yourself and like have a good life and drive a nice car, live in a nice house. God's not worried about you having any of those things or living those things. All he's worried about is whether or not he's first place in your life. And so first and foremost, if I'm speaking directly to a believer, is seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. So first things first is put God in first place in your life. When God's first place in your life, all the different things that you want out of this life will fall into place. And if God's first place, the car can't be. If God's first place, the fancy house can't be, right? Because that's idolatry, is when you're putting money on this top shelf and you're making money bigger than God. That's idolatry. And the Bible talks a lot about idolatry in the Old Testament. Yeah. And so first and foremost, understand like where money is in relationship to God, and God up here, money down here. Right. So once you've got the foundation, like biblically, you know that it's okay for you to go pursue this life. Like God doesn't want you poor and impoverished. Like once you've got that under control, the next thing is to understand like, okay, what are the results I'm currently getting from my actions and my behaviors, and do I like them? And so when you were asking the question about optimizing for certain things, like financially, if like you have a lot of financial instability, first and foremost, if you're a believer, you should take that to God and say, God, like give me wisdom and discernment on how to pursue this so that I can do it the right way and take care of my family and provide, because you say in your word that a good man provides an inheritance to his children's children. So like, if that's true, then how do I do it? And like ask God for the wisdom, and he will absolutely give it to you. You have to be in a place to listen, but God will absolutely meet you there. And so like actually asking God for those things is the first and foremost. And then asking yourself tactically, like, okay, cool. So I've been wanting to make $100,000 per year for the last 10 years and I haven't done it. Why? Why is that happening? Why might that not be the case? Okay, well, if I've been at a 1099, or if I've been at a job and now I'm leaving a job to go start a business, cool. That's totally fine, right? So how do I go? Is it just simply the fact that I was working at a job and my capacity was maxed, or was it something else that I wasn't doing to learn how to create value in the world? So asking yourself, what have I been doing and what has been the result? And then from that point, for instance, if it's like a fitness thing or a health thing, if you have this body and you're not satisfied with where it's at currently, which is very, very much like in a position where I'm at, where like I'm really trying to improve that part of my life, then I have to ask myself, what are my inputs? You know, what am I putting into my body? What are the things I'm doing to improve? How often am I doing them? What's my consistency? Right? So the same thing can be applied towards the business side. Okay, well, what do I need to do to make more money? Well, I need to have more conversations with qualified prospects. How do I do that? Through ads, cold calling, cold email, outreach, networking, in-person visits, something, right? You have to be able to create conversations or create the opportunity for conversations to happen. And so if you had one conversation in the last month and that person barely wanted to pay you $2,000 for you to create a project, and you had one conversation in the last month, which is, by the way, sadly, where a lot of people are at, then ask yourself, what am I doing that yielded one conversation? Oh, you did nothing and it came to you as an inbound lead? Cool. So that means you have to figure out, how do I create more of those opportunities? How do I create more of those instances where I may speak to somebody who's qualified and who would be interested in paying me money for my services so I could provide value to them?
Yeah.
Right?
Your market's not capped, dude.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That was a good one the other day. Yeah. You didn't even know that, but I actually had a really funny conversation about that. But
did you really?
Yeah, like
that's so funny.
I confronted this dude. I'm not gonna say who it was, but I did confront him and I said, you're making $8,000 a month. Your market is not capped. Like, let me just be very real with you. You don't even have to Google it.
Yeah.
Even if you're making $100,000 a month, your market's not capped. Like it's not a thing. And so anyway, I had to be very real with them.
Yeah.
And, so that's the thing too, is remove any of that negative crap that someone sold you.
Yeah.
But yeah, ask yourself, like, what am I doing? What am I putting in versus what am I getting out? And is it working or is it not working? And so if I'm living this way and I want this result and it's not working so far, then I'm going to have to change, because nothing changes if nothing changes.
Say that one more time.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
That's a taker downer.
A rider downer.
That's a rider downer, not a taker downer. Make it sound like you're in the WWE.
The definition of insanity is performing the same action over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
I think I heard that in a video game once.
I think Einstein said it.
Oh. Well,
I think it was Einstein. You'll have to look it up.
I think I learned it from yeah.
But think about that.
Yeah.
Like, you've been living this life a certain way, and you're all of a sudden expecting different results. Yeah. Where are the different results going to come from?
Yeah.
Do you think you don't have to change to get the thing that you want?
Yeah.
Is that how things work? No. So, and I'm taking this as like my own medicine, right? Like, there's like the Landon that got to $70K a month is not the Landon that goes to 200, 300, 400, 500K a month. Like, it's not the same person.
Yeah.
And so I'm asking myself, who do I have to become so that can be a reality in my life? Because those are different people. Those are different skill sets. It's all different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild to think about. Like, but I mean, it's so true. You have to change who you are. You have to. And that starts,
not your values, not your identity, but your actions and behaviors. They literally cannot stay the same.
Absolutely. And I mean, there was something that you said in a previous episode. So I think about people who are like severely overweight. You literally are like what you eat, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with, like, you mentioned another previous thing. When it comes to like marriage, or when it comes to trying to find the right partner, you attract what you are, right?
Yeah.
I think the same thing.
I think Gen Z says your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah, is that really what they say?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I am not
Gen
Z.
I saw it on a podcast the other day.
Your fire went out for 2 seconds, but it's okay.
She's back.
She's back. She relit. That's so interesting though, but it is so true, and I've learned that myself as well. Is like, whatever level that you want to get to, and I'm just basically reiterating what you said, but whatever level that you want to get to that you're not at and you're questioning why you're not getting that point, it's you.
Yeah. You have to take personal responsibility for where you are. I think that's another thing that Bill, if he left a full-time gig and he's not making the income he wants to make, he probably has an issue with blaming other people for his lack of success. Yeah. More than likely, if he's stuck, right? If he's just getting started and he's like, yeah, this is a part of the process, like, that's different. But if you're staying there and you've been in this place where, like, you haven't made the money that you want to make, you have to stop blaming other people for your lack of success. You
said one time, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah. Like, if you're not growing in your business, in your life, in every area of your life, like, look at the natural world we live in.
Yeah.
Look at trees. Trees are either growing or they're dying. Look at everything. Like, everything in the world is like that.
Absolutely.
So you have to ask yourself the question, like, are you growing in this area, or is this area, like, really dying for you? Sometimes that's good. Some things need to die in certain areas of your life. Old behaviors, old habits, old relationships, those need to go away so that you can accept new ones. Yeah.
That's so good.
So I want to talk about nighttime routines really quick before we close. Nighttime routines are actually what allow you to have great morning routines by and large. Why is that? Because when you're trying to create a morning routine, a lot of people, it's so funny. They always say, I'm going to wake up earlier. but then they don't change their behavior in the nighttime.
They go to bed like 2 a.m.
So they expect that their morning is going to improve. It's like, no, like you have to start before, so that you have to plan for the result that you want.
Vulnerably, I've been guilty of that myself, by the way. Yeah.
I mean, me too.
Yeah.
Different phases of life, but I never once thought, oh, this is the right way to do it. I just would do it and not be happy with myself. So if you want to improve your life and you want to improve your morning routine, whatever that might be, if you're optimizing on the faith side, if you're optimizing for the work side, which, by the way, we are not like against Hormozy in this. I think that's really important to note that, like, I love that video that he dropped. I think that was such a critical video for all the people on the internet to see, because it, like, sometimes waking up and just getting your butt to work is the answer.
And honestly, I think that it's mostly intended, from what I received from it, was it's intended for the people who can't even get themselves to work. Like, that's the way I received it. It's like, this is for people who, when they wake up, like, they're just plain lazy.
Well, and they're relying on some sort of quote unquote mystical power, which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That is gonna, like, when you unlock some special version of yourself, like, bro, it doesn't exist. You're just avoiding work.
Yeah.
So the better question would be to ask, why am I avoiding this? Is it because, like, for cold calls, are you afraid of rejection? Cool. Might want to deal with that and your life will get easier.
Yeah.
Right. So really quickly, to end on this, to set yourself up for a successful morning routine, you have to set yourself up like as you're like heading to bed.
Yeah.
So that means no caffeine in the late afternoon, especially no caffeine at night. That means I always like to have like my last liquid at like 7, 8 o'clock. So that way I don't wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. That's a huge hack, by the way, so that you don't wake up and interrupt your sleep cycle.
Yeah.
The third thing would be pick a consistent time to go to bed and a consistent time to wake up and stick to it. And you watch as your energy cycle changes to that and your circadian rhythm aligns. And dude, you're just like on when you wake up.
Yeah.
There's no feeling like that.
Yeah.
And that's without caffeine, by the way. A lot of times I literally will still be on because I'm well rested.
Yeah.
And then I learned this from Ed Milet, and it's cold mornings, warm nights. So what he'll do, like before he'll go to bed, take like a hot bath, hot shower, whatever. And what that does is, when it's really hot, is your skin temperature on the outside gets really hot. And so when you go to bed, what does your skin want to do?
Wants to cool off.
And wants to cool off.
Yeah.
And so your body cools itself off, and then you go into a deeper sleep sooner. Now, opposite is true for the morning. So when you want to wake up quickly, what do? You splash cold water on your face, right? And so taking a cold shower really quickly helps you wake up. And then there's a ton of health benefits to cold exposure too. Not going to get into that here, but cold mornings, warm nights. And then if you're really having a tough time falling asleep, and that's a part of your issue, there's a show, Andrew Huberman podcast, where he talked about his tips to getting better sleep. And one thing he'll do is like wake up in the morning and get indirect sunlight into his eyes. And not that you're staring at the sun in the bright of day. It's like when you can look at the sun and it doesn't hurt your eyes at all. Or if the sun's already out, you're looking indirectly, so you're still getting like some sunlight into your eyes. And what that does is it resets and helps the part of your eyes that make melatonin, natural melatonin in your body. So that way, when you go to sleep that night, you have plenty of melatonin, so you fall asleep more naturally, and you're not having to use sleep aids or supplemental melatonin. So like that's something that's a huge hack too, is just waking up, looking at indirect sunlight, and then the stores in your eyes that actually fill that up with melatonin, they start to work. So those are like little tactical things that you can do to get better sleep, which will make your entire day better. You'll be way more productive and overall like happier as a human being.
Yeah.
So those are some things that I've done consistently ever since I've learned them. And dude, cold mornings, warm nights, hot nights is like killer.
Yeah.
Absolutely works for me. I've never stopped doing that once I started it.
I love that.
It's super good.
I love that, man. I love that. Well, my question for you is, are there any, closing thoughts for the audience? Anything else that you want to hit on before we peace out?
Yes, for sure. So if you are in a point where you want to improve your life and you're like, Landon, I'm fired up, I want to go improve my morning routine, what a lot of people will be prompted to do would be tomorrow morning to start waking up at 4:30 a.m. And what's going to happen after you do that for 2 or 3 days is you're going to get really tired and really groggy. So the easier thing to do would be to incrementally wake up earlier in the morning over a week's time. So like, for instance, like practice waking up, 30 minutes earlier for a full week, then do an hour earlier for next week. And that way you're actually training your body over time, because your circadian rhythm, it's a rhythm. It's not a on-off switch, right? So you have to train that. And that will make it easier so that you're not so tired during the day. Like I don't get tired at 5, 6 o'clock now because I've trained my body that like we're still on for another 5 hours, right? So go to bed at 10, wake up at 6, whatever. So when you get that consistent sleep cycle, everything is going to get easier. And all of the habits that you want to make, all the things that you want to make happen, they will fall into line easier because you're not fighting against biology. So sleep is super critical. Get plenty of sleep. I like to get 8 hours. I used to get 6. I operate better today on 8. Yeah. And it's just a personal thing. Some people operate on 4 and they're like really, really good with that. So, yeah, I would say just like get plenty of sleep. And if you want to add a new behavior, and a new habit or a new routine in your life, another thing is to not do everything all at once. Like use them as building blocks. The book Atomic Habits talks about this. Like when people try and thrust themselves into massive change, oftentimes what happens if their conviction is not strong enough is they will whiplash. So they'll start off and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to do a 6-hour morning routine. And then they just like fall off the wagon and they hate themselves if they don't get it done. That's not the answer either, right? There's a ditch on both sides. So if you want to add a behavior or a habit into your life or improve a routine, don't try and like go 0 to 100 real quick. Like improve it over time and don't just focus on, did I do it one time for 2 hours? Focus on, did I do this one thing 5 times this week? If so, freaking awesome. Because now what you've done is you've bought credibility with yourself and you've kept your promises so that when you go to add to the next thing, you're going to believe that you can actually do it and therefore it will happen for you. The way I can look at this the best is building blocks with protein. If I get 200 grams of protein in per day, automatically when I look at my like macros and my calories at the end of the day, everything looks a lot better. I didn't overeat on fat and carbs because I focused on that one thing. But if I would have focused on, it's 200 grams of protein, it's this many carbs, it's this many, like all that stuff, it's a lot to focus on. So I like to set my eyes on one target and say, okay, I'm going to hit this target. And if I hit this, it'll be way easier to hit the rest of the targets. So figure out what that one thing is for you and hit that big domino.
Love that. I think that's a good place to end. We covered on a lot of things. I know we started the podcast off, just mostly talking about what our personal morning routines are, and just our routines in general and where our thought processes are on them. But I think that was a really important and really, a really big place to kind of build the foundation on what we really wanted to hit on, which was the tactical side of things that you covered very, very well. So if you guys are listening to this podcast and you're driving or whatever you're doing, I think it'd be really good to go back 30, 40 minutes and just go back to when we started talking about Bill, our fake entrepreneur. But there are a lot of people who live their life like good old Bill. And if you feel like you're one of those people, I think that like even if you took a couple of the tactics that Landon mentioned, I think it would drastically change your life.
Bill, the way we describe Bill, he gets things dictated to him. He gets things really he's really drug around by life. And he's not directing and self-actualizing the life that he wants to build. And that's a really fast track to depression. It's a fast track to a life that's very meaningless and very empty. And it's like because when you think about that person, you think about the adjacent behaviors of that person and they're not good. Like it's not a good path. But then you think about peak performers. And you think about people who run marathons. Think about people who are bodybuilders. They have like ridiculously good habits. And so the takeaway here isn't necessarily model my routine or model AJ's routine. Model the routine of somebody that you respect and look up to and that you want their life.
Yeah.
And you will eventually have it. If you do that long enough and you execute for a long enough time horizon, like you will have it. And that's the most powerful thing about like surrounding yourself with, you know, winners is that eventually you become, you know, the sixth.
Totally.
The top 5 people you hang out with.
Absolutely. Well, if you guys want to binge any more content,
check them out.
Check them out, guys.
You guys like it.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace out.
Bye.
Skadoosh.